Hey guys, I went another week without working on the guild website project again, but at least this time I went live. That's right, I went live. It was a spur of the moment kind of thing actually. A friend of mine just needed some help with his computer science assignment. Something about how when he pulled from a CSV file, it wasn't like pulling the data that he needed or something, so anyway, I just asked him to zip up his source code and send it my way, so he did. And that's what you're going to go through with me. Normally I would time lapse this so that we could, show it all really quick and just put my voice over what I did, but, well, I don't really have much time, so I'm just going to walk through the time lapse picture by picture and explain what was going through my head. Hope that's okay. Thanks. Okay guys, so this is going to be a sort of improvised time lapse, so I'm just going to sort of watch this as we go through. So this is normally how I would do the time lapse. I keep these this whole thing here, it's just a bunch of screenshots that my computer takes every 10 seconds. So normally I just compile this into like a quick time lapse for you guys, but what I'm just going to go through and do right now, just to save me time in like planning and stuff, is I'm just going to turn the time lapse into a slideshow and just blast right through it. So anyway, let me just get right into it. What's going on here is I'm installing Qt Creator. And the reason I'm doing that is because in this case, I'm helping a friend of mine who's having trouble getting something to work, and he told me he was building it in he was building a Qt application. So I figured I should probably download Qt Creator, the development package to create Qt and edit Qt applications. But long story short, it took a really long time. You'll see later. Eventually I just give up, but in the meantime he did send me the code, or at least the functions and stuff that he would be using. And I was reading through it and I figured that I already knew what the problem was. So here I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of the slideshow. So what the problem was, we'll use black here and red. So he had a bunch of text, for example, egg, and then 250, and then bread, 100, and then, whatever. The point is he had the name of an item here, and then the value after it. Oh, because he was making a calorie tracker, So the gist of it was you would type the name, it would check this CSV file to see if it exists, and if it does, it would pull the value here, and it would, display it or let you know or add it to your calorie tracker thing. And so what the problem was, or what he wasn't doing right, is that he was separating. Let me see if I can close this here. Where is it? One of these will show you his code. Yeah, see, I was explaining that to him there, right here. So this line, what the problem with this line was that he was splitting it up by commas when he should have been splitting it up by lines, or like \n. Or actually nothing. I believe I eventually figured out that this function here, getLine, if you don't use a third parameter, then it will split it up by new line, or by every new line. So anyway, that's what I spent the first part of the stream just sort of explaining to him. I did some more research and I was just gonna really leave it at that, but he seemed like he needed a bit more help, so I figured I might as well just build a solution or optimize his code as best as I can on stream so he can sort of see the process, right? So I sort of continue at this point, and I'm creating a, don't mind the name there, I'm creating a new application, just sort of testing it out to make sure that I can, output hello world. At one point I believe at this point it worked just fine. Yeah, code 0, which means it worked. So once that's fine, I download his code again and I just place it into my application. I fixed a few bugs there, and then let's see what's going on here. I was importing his food list, right? And so now I wanted to see what the best way of, so here I'm trying to see if I could maybe read the entire file all at once, but anyway, I ran into a few things here, so I didn't change his code too drastically. But you can see here I'm just sort of reading everything and trying to refactor it. So what I did here, I just added this line of code here. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to output what exist was to show him what's currently being output, because the way that this function works is the first parameter is what you're searching. So his was the file input. The second parameter is where the output is going to be stored. And then the third one is what the delimiter is. So anyway, I was just trying to show him what the output was. And it obviously was just, for example, bread. So rather than being bread to 50 as he was expecting, he was only receiving bread, because he was the delimiter he was using was a comma, not a new line, which would, you don't see them because it's for us to read, but new lines look like that in code typically. It might look like that sometimes too if you're on Windows, but whatever, I digress. Alright, so let's continue here. So here I'm doing more testing. And I'm just, okay, so at this point I've changed the code so that now it's no longer using a third parameter, so now it's splitting it up by line. So if you were to run the code right now, you would receive exactly what we need. So it would be this, which is what he needed. So now the next part of splitting it up, because again, sorry to keep doing this to you guys, but black screen. So for example, bread 250. We'll just say cheese. I don't know. This doesn't matter. The point is, once I got rid of that comma, the third parameter, which was a comma, this next, it started splitting it up in groups like this, in lines, which is perfect, right? Because now each row is its own line. But the next step is to then split it up via a comma. I'll use blue so it's easier to see. Right, so that's what we're doing next. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get the food name, and I'm going to be trying to get the food calorie. And so I made the mistake of trying to use getLine just because I saw it was being used here, so I figured, if it works here, it must work there, right? Obviously I was wrong, but anyway, you can see that that's what I'm trying to do there. Yeah, that's me trying to troubleshoot it. So I was like, hey, what the heck? So again, getLine, first parameter is what we're searching, so I figured exist, which is currently, name, whatever, comma, value. I figured that would be there. I'd be able to put the name into this string because I'm splitting it up by comma, but anyway, it wasn't working. So eventually I just sort of quit and I Googled it. Hey, why waste the time? So by Googling it, I found that the best way of doing it is to just run .find on the string. So exist, again, exist is currently bread, comma, 250. So that string, find the comma, it'll return the index, right? So then we get the substring of exist from 0, the beginning, all the way up to that point. And that's how we get the name. And then food calorie is pretty simple. You just do the same thing, but you put it first, and then comma, you put the end. So you would do exist.length because that would be the last, the last index. So yeah, you can see me do that there. And then just some debugging or just making sure want to output it. Oh yeah, and here I had to apply stoi because cal is a vector of integers. So if you ever programmed in something like Python or Ruby, a vector is sort of like an array. However, it's dynamic because in C++, you either define how many spaces are available in an array, or you use a vector or some form of linked list, which I believe this is one. Anyway, it gets complicated. So point is, I had to convert the string into an integer just so that it would fit into this space. Okay, continue. Okay, see, so at this point, I had gotten it working. So for each one of these, each one of these groupings of 2 is 1 line in his CSV file. So see, it was like name, egg, cal, the calories, name, bread, cal, 200. I saw that it was also grabbing the comma, and I didn't like that, so I just added a +1. So right here, basically, rather than start at the comma position, we start at +1 of that. So skip the comma and take whatever's left, and now it's working. What else here? So at this point, I think all of this code at the top is working. So it'll read, so all this code here that I'm circling in blue, this code, what this does is it reads, oh my god, why am I doing this? I could just write it. So it reads the CSV file and stores the result in some vectors. So that's what this block of code does. So once we get to fins.close, we're like done. We've got it working, I think. So let's keep going. And now what we're doing here is we're checking to see if it exists. So this whole loop here. Okay. So this thing, what this is doing is, this is a for loop, which means it's going to cycle up until a certain point, which happens to be when I, which starts at 0, I as a counter, is greater than the size of the list. So, you know, when it reaches the end of the list. So I will just keep going from, 0, and then I will be 1, and then it'll be 2, and so on, and it'll just keep running this, right? So anyway, what we want to do here is, so let's say array start at 0, right? So we'll start at 0. This food's name, so we go to food list. Food list up there is it's going to be just above cal. I can't show it to you, but it's just an array or a vector of strings. So we're getting this one's string in the same position in calories. So we get the name and we get its calories. And then what we do is we cycle through all of oh yeah, hold on. This stuff I think is broken still. At this point I hadn't fixed it, so we'll see how, like, what I do to it exactly. So I'm just I'm grabbing the name and the calorie count from the linked lists or whatever that we made up here, the arrays. And I'm just outputting it. Then if this food is equal to the user input, then that means that we found it. So then it'll output this and erase it. So I probably changed something here. I cleaned that up. That's fine. Oh yeah, I was gonna, the reason I'm looking up 2 lower here is because I was looking to see if I can make this case insensitive. So for example, if you type bread, it'll search bread whether it's capitalized or lowercase. So if you ever want to add some sort of case insensitive search, just make both strings, so the string that you're comparing against and the current, the other one, we'll just call it, make them both lowercase, and then that way it doesn't matter, So I was going to do that, but I realized it would take me more than 2 lines of code, and so I just got lazy and figured, whatever, it's not what I'm trying to teach here. So anyway, so yep, that's working. If it found it, do something, then break. Oh yeah, so at this point I was checking to see the new food code. So basically what this code does, so if it finds it, then it doesn't really do anything. I think it's supposed, in his project, it's probably supposed to do something, but we just didn't do anything. We were just like, congrats, whatever, we found it. But if it doesn't find it, or like, let's say you write something like maybe, I don't know, purple soda doesn't exist, right? It'll say, hey, invalid input. Then it'll bring up this function, new food. And new food is what we started troubleshooting next, which is just a function that will ask you if you want to save a new food. And if you do, it'll ask you to, give it a name, give it some calories, and then it'll write it. What it's doing here, f out, this means for file output, or that's what that's like supposed to be. And that's being fed in through new food. And so if we go back, I think you can see where we're calling it. Yeah, f out is being fed in here. And so if you're wondering where this function, I think this is food search. food search is getting its own f out, also from a parameter, and then this one's getting it from up here. So basically, all the way in the very beginning of the function, like the main, let's see if I can find it. Dang. I don't know. Alright, I don't want to waste too much time. The point is, using only one file input and one file output, we can do everything, you know. So, anyway, I just start refactoring the new food code, removing unnecessary, like there was this boolean that was being sent in for, I think there was no reason, there may have been, but anyway, I just removed that. I went through and what else did I do? Oh yeah, I just changed, so normally, oh hey, look, this is what I was going to show you. One input, one output. So input file stream, output file stream. And anyway, oh, and what this is saying is file output, open this, but do input output stream and what type you want to append it. So whenever you write to this, you're not just totally overwriting the file, you're adding to it, or you're creating a new line for it. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, what I was doing here to make a new line run a bit more smoothly, or like avoid errors, is I don't open the output yet. I open the output afterwards. Or not afterwards, but like before I need to like write something in. So if they hit yes, then I'll open the file and write out what they want, you know. That's just like a personal thing. I think it's just better. Yeah, and then I close it as soon as they're done. So then I ran into some errors. Oh yeah, because you can even see it here. I even made a joke. I was like, but no, look, there's only two. But up here, I'll put it in red so you can see. Food search actually has 3 defined, and that's what the error was coming from. So what these things up here are, these are function declarations that happen in case you need to run this function here, right? Because the code is going to read the function, or the code is read from top to bottom, starting in main. So, you know, it'll run all this stuff, and then when it gets here, it's going to be like, oh, I don't know what food search is. But if you just give it like a little bit of information, like, oh, food search will return nothing, and it has these inputs, then it'll be like, oh, okay, then I'll just figure it out later. You know, like it's good that it's in there. So anyway, basically it was relying on this one, even though I only edited this one. So that's what's going on there. Anyway, fix that. We push that into there. Oh, that. Whoa. I was just telling him to make sure that he's including the string library or the string header, whatever. And I believe at this point, I probably stopped. Wait, what am I doing here? Oh yeah, more. I don't know why I was so obsessed with trying to make it case insensitive. I think it's just like how I normally code things. Anyway, I think at this point I'm just explaining stuff and adding comments so that it's easier for him to see or like understand. I don't see myself editing anything, so I can't say that I'm making any crazy changes. Oh, you know what I think it is though? I think I was Yeah, basically what was going on here, there was an error in the code because what it was doing was if it, well, okay, here's what this block of code. So from here all the way down here, what this block of code does is it searches the list of food for to see if it exists, right? So what was going on was if it found it, so it would cycle through the whole thing. So this for loop would cycle. And if it didn't find it, then it would finish and keep moving, right? And so it would trigger a new food. So if it didn't find it, then it would ask if you want to make a new food. But if it did find it, then it would be like, hey, congratulations, you found it. And then it would break the loop, which means it would exit and then ask if you want to add food anyway. So all I had to do, well, someone in chat actually recommended that I replace this. Instead of using break, I could have used return. And he was actually right, but by the time I saw that message, it was too late. So what I ended up doing instead was I created a Boolean variable, and then I just checked that variable to true if I found it. So the new food would only trigger if that variable was ever false. So anyway, there's always a better way of doing things, you know? And oh yeah, at this point I was done. So I just sort of zipped it up for him, called it "Here You Go," and uploaded it, and that was the end of it. Yeah, and then I just kept going with the rest of the stream. I was just showing off like a dumb project, and I helped out somebody. Well, I don't know if I helped out. I probably didn't, but this was fun to play with. They were they were creating a shader, some like a gravity or physics engine. It was pretty cool, pretty neat to play with too. Hope he did it. Or sorry, I hope he figured it out. But yeah, that was pretty much the end of my night here. Yeah, I think I was just talking to him some more. Let's zoom past it. Hold on. Slideshow. Yeah, we were just talking about it. I was just telling him to try different things. And how at this point I told him how I am totally not some sort of physics engine pro. So I was explaining to him how I made this video game in about like 30 hours. And the gravity engine was terrible. So, you know, a little bit of self-deprecation. But I think that was it. Oh yeah, a nice little cringe face. Anyway, I'll go ahead and stop oh yeah, we talked about the website too, but I didn't do anything, so I'll just go ahead and stop there. Hope that was fun for you guys. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.